I'm Rachel Ann Goodman, professor of journalism at Cabrillo College, and I teach writing for the broadcast media. There's an old Chinese proverb, and I'm not sure if it's a blessing or a curse, but it says, "May you live in interesting times." My students are living in interesting times, and today they bring you a topic that they picked that they feel the world needs to know a little bit more about, and that's sexual harassment. Here to tell you more about that is moderator Maia Rodriguez.
Sexual harassment has been pushed into the spotlight as the Harvey Weinstein scandal continues to explode. Since the first allegations were made in September, more and more victims in the entertainment industry and politics have come forward to speak out against their harassers. In response, people have taken to the internet to reveal the shocking prevalence of sexual harassment throughout the country. What seems like an avalanche, victims are sharing their personal stories of harassment and assault on social media using the hashtag #MeToo. This has sparked a nationwide discussion on sexual harassment. Has sexual harassment complaints been pushed under the rug? Does your school do enough to protect you from sexual misconduct? How has Cabrillo College responded to its own sexual harassment scandal? How safe of a place is the college campuses for women? We'll discuss all this and more with our Cabrillo College student panel. Here with me today are our classmates Chanel Escobar, Karla Ramirez, and Andy Sheehan. So what was your reaction to all of these scandals kind of like coming forward out of nowhere, Andy?
Well, I must say I'm not surprised. It's been going on for a long, long time, and I'd like to think that now that all these things are being brought to light, it's time to bring some solutions to light as well. So I think it's the perfect time now to strike while the iron's hot, and let's get some things fixed with the way people are treating other people.
Karla, were you shocked at any of these allegations? Anyone in particular?
I was definitely shocked at the, what was his name? Ed Westwick from Gossip Girl, just because, a lot of us grew up watching that show. And I believe that's one of, the more recent allegations. But with a lot of, the other, people in Hollywood, I wasn't that shocked just because it does happen a lot in the entertainment business. It's finally being talked about now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's part of what's so shocking about it is we're hearing allegations accusing a variety of people. So people are high up actors and a lot of lovable characters. So it's kind of shaking the nation, I think, to realize that even these people that we really care about, that we think are really great people, mm-hmm. can go so low into doing this, and kind of shows how prevalent it is and that anyone can really take a part in it. Chanel, did you have any reactions, or were you shocked about it?
I was shocked to hear that Mariah Carey is being accused of sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Sexual harassment refers to persistent and unwanted sexual advances between one person and another, and typically takes place in working environments, in the workplace. And a lot of times victims let it slide for so long because they're afraid of losing their jobs or getting demoted, until they're finally pushed so far and harassed so much they finally say something and maybe lose credibility because they didn't say it sooner.
I've noticed that too with sexual harassment. All of these scandals coming out, a lot of people are discrediting these victims because they waited so long to talk about it. Why do you guys think that victims tend to wait or don't report it at all?
Well, of course, there's the privacy issue. Nobody, somebody's being accosted or anything like that. It's not going to be something anyone would be that comfortable about bringing to light. Part of the reason being because they don't want to be not believed, and or they don't want to be taken as too lightly, and maybe they're afraid that if they get the person in trouble who did the sexual harassment, of what could happen, the repercussions there, and women and anyone has to be careful as to how much they want to say about themselves. It's hard to explain. I'm gonna have to turn it to one of my fellow panelists. Yeah.
I think the reason why a lot of people wait is, first of all, they're just kind of scared. And then there's also there's also a stigma around all of this, and a lot of times if people speak out, there will be a lot of people like, oh, well, you're probably lying, or maybe it didn't happen that way, or you just like took it the wrong way. And so a lot of people probably feel like, oh, if they say something, people aren't going to believe them. And not only that, they're also, like Andy said, they could be scared. And then what if it was like at work, you could be demoted or lose your job because of it. So I feel like that's why a lot of people tend to wait. And also it's just, it takes a lot of courage to talk about it. And it's just, I feel like once the person is finally ready to talk about it, like I said, it takes some time. So I don't know.
Do you think our society is kind of set up in a way with our gender expectations and our history of sexist mindsets? Do you think we're kind of set up in a way where we let this slide a lot?
Well, I think that a lot of times someone who is what we consider sexual harassment, harassing somebody, they might consider it flirting, which we know is completely different. Flirting involves two people and an interest of having a deeper relationship between each other, and it could be playful, written, verbal, and it's not sexual advances and unwelcome, inappropriate actions from one person to another.
And I think when it comes to a workplace and colleges even, if it's between professors and students or anything like that, it's automatically inappropriate because there's automatically that shift in power. There's someone in an authoritative figure, they automatically have a lot more influence over someone else. So it really shouldn't be happening because they don't know how they're influencing that person. That person might feel put down automatically and not feel like they have the power to stop anything. That is unwanted.
That being said, we have to remember that sexual harassment can go either way. It could be a student harassing a teacher. It could be an employee harassing an employer. I mean, it's like the basic concept here is people harassing people. We need to stop it and check ourselves and respect ourselves, as they say, and respect others' privacy, and there seem to be no boundaries anymore. We need to respect others' boundaries, respect our own boundaries.
As long as we tell the perpetrators no and to stop it, then after that it's considered bullying or coercion and harassment. As long as you tell them no, that you do not like it, they might consider it flirting.
We actually put together a video of Cabrillo College students asking them where they think the line is between flirting and sexual harassment. So we're going to go to that video right now, along with a student's commentary on her personal experience being sexually harassed.
My opinion for males, I think it's to the point where if you see the body language is different, or they want to pull away, or just that awkward feeling or that awkward facial expression that they don't want to be there, I think that should be a sign enough for you to stop talking.
As soon as you make your point that you don't want to participate and it's very clear that you are uninterested, after that point it's harassment. I think unwanted flirting is more trying to pick you up and trying to compliment you and you're not interested. I think it's really bad once it starts getting gross.
Probably when both people are cool with flirting, so that's fine. But when if you're getting sexual harassed is when you're physically touching them, they say no, or you keep bugging them about it. That's what I think it is.
I think the best way to define it is whatever makes you personally feel uncomfortable. I'm sure that someone can tell you your outfit looks nice and it could make you feel, intimidated. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. I think it's anything that anyone perceives to make them feel uncomfortable can be defined as sexual harassment.
At touching, contact. If you want to be nice and have a conversation, that's fine. But I feel once there's physical contact, that's where I draw the line.
The main difference would be consent, mutual consent, and both parties wanting to be a part of the interaction. If somebody's pushing for something that the other doesn't want, then I would consider that sexual harassment.
I have been sexually harassed multiple times since I was like 12 or 11. There's not a single woman I know that hasn't been.
Had an encounter once, and it was very brief, but I felt sick the rest of the day, and it was not good. And I have had friends who have had situations here.
So, I've experienced sexual harassment, and I think most women have, as well as men, but I haven't heard too much about that, at least from my friends that are males. And I wish I would, because I think that males should speak up in those situations. They tend to hold a lot back.
I'm ready to go to a concert at the Catalyst. I was wearing a very nice jacket and a very nice outfit, and this gentleman came up and started talking to me and made a lot of rude statements. So I kindly said, I had a jacket that my mother had given me, and I kindly said, the only beaver you're going to be able to feel is the beaver on my cuffs, and walked away because I did not like what he was saying. And I suggest that all women and men who do not like the situation speak up for themselves no matter what and no matter how uncomfortable it is, and walk away.
I'm from Brazil, so that happens all the time. A guy followed me, and then he tried to rape me, but I ran.
I have not. I've known people that have been followed to their cars at night, which is really scary. We shouldn't have to be worried about walking to our cars at night.
We as people can change how we react, and it starts with us, not others. So if you want somebody to respect you, you have to respect yourself and honor and love yourself for who you are.
When he came to hug me goodbye, my heart started pounding and my body froze, because I never knew what kind of hug it was going to be. And just as people were walking out of the kitchen, I felt him against me in places I shouldn't have. When he left, I tried to erase what had just happened like all the other times before, but the stubble around his mouth had scratched my skin, and I could feel the redness burning on my chest. Every time I told myself it didn't happen, I'd look down and see the mark he left on me. It didn't make any sense for this to be happening. I worked in a cozy restaurant in Santa Cruz County, filled with people I considered family. He would give me rides so I wouldn't have to walk in the rain, and he'd tell me to be safe when I'd go out on the weekends. But when no one was looking, I'd have to rip away his hands and claw out of his arms. Then I'd quietly sweep crumbs off of the floor, thinking to myself, he didn't mean to touch me there. He's just being friendly, I'm overreacting. One day my manager saw something, so she asked me about it. And it was the only time anyone ever said anything, but instead of feeling rescued, my cheek started to burn, and suddenly I couldn't look her in the eye. I wish I could say I stood up for myself, but instead I stared at my feet, brushed it off like it wasn't a big deal, and waited for someone to remind me that it was. No one ever did. I never thought it would be so easy to ignore being sexually assaulted, and when you hear stories about it, there's always someone asking, why didn't they say anything? It's hard. Your head floods with reasons to ignore it, and you question yourself until you think there's nothing wrong. But I wish I had realized it was worth talking about, because it is a big deal. I can't keep pretending that it didn't happen anymore, because that doesn't help. What helps is talking about it.
Thank you, Karla Ramirez, for putting that video together for us. So, sexual harassment seems to be an issue with college campuses. Andy, do you have any stats on college campuses nearby?
Yes. I was looking at an article in the San Jose Mercury News that mentions that sexual misconduct is widespread across the 10 UC campuses. And in the article, it quotes some statistics. 100 incidents in the past 3 years between 2013 and April of 2016, that is 3 years and 4 months, 100 incidences of sexual harassment on campuses, all of which require discipline. So a lot of the 50-something% of those cases involved staff and other staff, and 30-something% was students that were the victims. So it is a widespread problem. Luckily, Santa Cruz was at the very bottom of the scale, and we had the fewest incidences with only 5 in the past 40 months at UC Santa Cruz. So maybe Santa Cruz is ahead of the curve a little bit, and that's good to know.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Cabrillo College is actually having its own sexual harassment scandal right now. One of its professors or former professors, is being sued for sexual misconduct at the moment. I think they have a trial date in September of next year. How did you guys react to that?
It's not the first time I've heard of professors physically, sexually harassing their students. So, and it's sad that it happens so often. It's
Excuse me. I would say that if you're somebody who could be taken advantage of in any sort of private situation with a professor, if you're going to office hours, class hours, that I would imagine it'd be perfectly okay to bring a friend with you. You know what I mean? So I don't think that we should put ourselves in situations that where something could go wrong. You know,
right.
But that doesn't excuse it at all. But
Yeah, but that puts a lot of responsibility on people to protect themselves from sexual harassment, and not a lot of responsibility on people to not sexually harass people.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we need to find solutions
So I think we need to
stop
shift our perspective, because a lot of that happens like, oh, don't go out and walk at night, don't go into this neighborhood. It's putting a lot of responsibility, I think, on victims, you know, and it's not allowing us to change our mindset on how we treat each other in the first place.
And it makes me wonder, did she ever tell him no? Did she ever tell him to stop? Well, maybe he was considering, maybe he considered it to be casual affection when she considered it sexual harassment.
I don't think that matters, because he's a professor and she's a student. There's
That's right.
automatically that.
So it's inappropriate no matter what. But she still has to say to stop.
But even if you say stop, you have a lot of, like, there's been a lot of, like, cases where people say stop and the guys don't take no for an answer, and they'll end up, like, killing the person because they said no. There's been so many situations where guys hit on a girl and they tell them no, and next thing you know, they end up dead because they couldn't simply handle the fact that that person didn't want them.
Yeah.
So
that is where I would say I would urge young women or women in general, or to people in general, to use your instincts, and if something doesn't feel right, you know, if possible, get out of the situation sooner than later. You know, the longer you stay in a situation, the more you might make the perpetrator feel as if you're comfortable being there. So, I mean, if you feel in your gut something is wrong, get the heck out. Report the person if necessary, you know, but we can't just tolerate it, for sure.
Yeah. I think the problem is also is verbally stating no is one thing, but then people need to be aware of body language and the fact that if there is a difference in power, someone might not feel comfortable saying no or verbalizing it. You know, they might feel like, you know, their job's at risk, their safety's at risk. They might not feel comfortable verbalizing something, but we should all be aware of our body language and the situation.
Yes.
And
if
perceiving,
you feel fearful.
Yeah, social cues. Yeah.
There's a book called The Gift of Fear, written by an FBI profiler. A really good book. If you feel fearful, there's a reason for it. You know, the fight or flight response in us comes alive, and it's like, so regardless of, you know, whether you want to get someone in trouble, get yourself to safety first. Anyway,
that's right. You put yourself first. Your safety and comfort should come first.
So we interviewed the Human Resource Director at Cabrillo College, Angela Hoyt, and we discussed Title IX and some sexual harassment policies at Cabrillo. Let's go to that video right now.
We have a training program that is a two-part training program that all college teachers here are required to complete, and it's the first part is a general Title IX training. It's an online web-based training module, and then the college has developed a phase 2 piece of that is specific to our college and our policies and our procedures, and so they're required to do this Title IX training annually. So I would suggest two things. The probably the most important thing is if it's a sexual assault, and if the person is harmed physically or even emotionally, that they go to two places. One, they contact the Cabrillo College Title IX coordinator. That's Samantha Fulb, and she works for me here in the HR department. And the other place to go would be to the sheriff's office on campus. The bottom line is, if someone is receiving conduct that is unwelcome, then to me, that's where the line stops between flirting and harassment. And it's different for every person, right? Mm-hmm. Because the definition and just the reality is that it requires a subjective feeling from the person who's receiving the conduct that it's unwelcome, that they don't want that. Sometimes flirting is not offensive to a person. Sometimes it is. Mm. And so I think for each of us, we check in with ourselves and we decide and we realize, how is this affecting me? Is this unwelcome? Is this something that's making me uncomfortable? If it is, then we first, again, what I would suggest is we first say stop. Report it, to go either to the sheriff's office or the Title IX office or to someone who they trust. We have a lot of people on campus who are trained to be resources and point persons for people who are struggling with that. So I would just encourage anyone who's dealing with issues of harassment, whether current or in the past, to reach out and to find help and to go to the resources, because there are a lot of resources, and it's unfortunately it's a situation that is happening all over the world, all over the country, right? And it's so much in the news right now, so it's probably bringing up a lot of issues for a lot of people who've had to deal with it in the past. We have, first of all, we have the Title IX office, so we're here as a resource to help and support. We also have the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Department on campus, also a resource. We have student health services here on campus, and our student health services group provides medical as well as emotional and therapeutic support for people who are victims or who are just struggling with the issue. If it's an employee on campus, then we have the Employee Assistance Program, which is also a service that's available to all of our employees. And then we also have listed in this document community resources.
Thank you, Angela Hoyt, for allowing us to interview you. So Title IX, under that, colleges cannot discriminate based on gender. Under that, it is also included that sexual harassment and sexual assault is a form of discrimination. Do you have any requirements that colleges
Well, one of the primary duties of a Title IX coordinator is to provide a safe and efficient path for any member of the campus community to take in order to file a complaint.
Yeah, and with the recent Cabrillo sexual harassment case, there was an issue with getting to a Title IX coordinator, and there wasn't exactly a clear process, which got them in a little bit of trouble. Do you think that Cabrillo College has taken sexual harassment seriously? Do you think that you guys feel safe on campus?
I think that yes, absolutely they do. Every professor and everybody that I've worked with on Cabrillo College campus makes sure that that all the employees know about Title IX and to always report any kind of misbehavior between two people.
Yeah, I personally feel safe on the campus. I don't think that we've had that many incidences. However, it's funny because Angela Hoyt stated that there's a requirement of every year teachers have to go under these trainings. But when I surveyed like a handful of professors who had been at Cabrillo from 10 years to 40 years, they'd only gone 2 times. Like the most was 3 times over the years. So I'm not sure how they're really compliant with that.
Well, the professor who's involved right now in a lawsuit from a student feeling harassed by him. It turns out that he has been a professor at Cabrillo for over 20 years and had never attended or had only attended 1 hour of training on Title IX or on sexual harassment. So not enough is being done for the faculty, to get the word out about sexual harassment. We need to remind people, unfortunately, people need to be reminded that, we've got to behave ourselves like adults. We're in a college here,
Yeah. So we only have a few minutes left.
And respect each other.
Yeah. Do you guys have any last statements on sexual harassment or to any sexual harassment victims? Chanel?
Well, I think a lot of women have experienced sexual harassment at one point in their life. And just remember, next time it happens, always tell the person no or go file a complaint.
Karla?
Just to let them know that they're not alone, just like, with the hashtag #MeToo. There's a lot of people that have gone through it, males and females, and, it's a very horrible situation, but you will get through it and you'll be okay.
Andy?
Jean Cleary was murdered in a college dorm room in 1986, and her parents, after she was raped and murdered on a college campus, discovered that the college had not reported crime activity on that campus for the past few years, and that they would not have sent their daughter there had they known that there had been the sort of crimes that were going on. So anyways, I just wanted to bring Jean Cleary's name to the fore because she did not die in vain. A lot has been done to make sure schools report crime activity.
The important thing is now we're talking about it. So that wraps up our program today. We hope you've enjoyed our discussion on sexual harassment. We encourage you to continue the discussion at home with your friends. We'd like to thank Matilda Rand, the community TV crew, and our instructor, Rachel Goodman, and our classmates for making this show possible. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for watching.